Napalm Death, Harmony Corruption, the 1990 album that sent shockwaves throughout the world. This is an album that I would call an essential listen. Even if you don't like grindcore, if you like death metal, Napalm Death still does that too. They really did a lot of things. They did groove metal, death metal. You have diatribes, which a lot of people don't like to talk about that, but kind of some new metal stuff as well, mostly leaning into the groove territory. But Harmony Corruption was the beginning of an era. It was the end of Mick Harris. It was the start of Barney Greenway. The first album for Barney, the last album for Mick. This is where things started to get turbulent with the band. Not that they hadn't already completely changed out the original lineup from Scum. Nobody, except for Mick at this point, was still on the band after that first side of Scum, side A, which, if you didn't know, this band has seen some lineup changes. Although to this day, Shane Embury, right there, is the only one who's really been a constant throughout most of this. Now, he joined with Fito from Enslavement to Obliteration, but this is the one that I think is the most diverse in their catalog, especially from the early years. Behind me, I have Live Corruption, which I have my VHS tape here, but clearly that's not what's playing behind me. This is one of the best death metal shows of all time, man. I stand firmly on that. Along with Gorefest at Dynamo, this is one of the greatest. And honestly, it's pretty cheap to get the VHS. I mean, you can always watch it on YouTube, but you just never, you never know. You never know with the internet. It'll be here probably forever, but just in case it isn't, you got a physical copy as well. And if you've noticed anything about this channel, we like physical copies around here. Hopefully you viewing it as well are into that, because fuck digital music. That's not what I'm about. For finding it, yes. For actually like replaying it constantly, by that time I want to have it physically. Now, something I want to talk about with this album is the lyrics, because death metal oftentimes is very gore featured. It's centered around serial killers, or it's centered around just violence, but this album isn't. Especially when you have songs like Unfit Earth, silent screams of an unfit earth. You know, the whole track is about like, we're polluting the planet, and it's kind of a positive thing, but with Barney's really kind of conflicting vocals, you might not think that unless you actually read what you might know as a lyrics sheet. Now, something I really appreciate about records is you don't need to get out the readers to actually see what was going on here. And with cassettes and CDs, sometimes, you know, the print is so tiny that good luck, you know. You just end up going on your phone and going to Genius Lyrics and reading it there anyways, even though you have the physical right in front of you. It's just easier that way. So, you know, one thing that's great about vinyl is when you have a lyric sheet, often it is provided, sometimes it's not, but you can actually read what was going on. And if you're super old school, you'll actually sit there and watch the record spin while you're reading the lyrics here. And man, this is an album that withstood the test of time. Not every death metal album from 1990, 1991, 1992 actually stood the test of time super well. You know, not only just lyrically speaking, but production-wise. Production-wise, this was great. I mean, the guitars can be a little bit thin at times, I will say that for sure, but it was a step away from the grindcore, and it was leaning into the Florida sound, which I can't mention Florida without mentioning the fact that John Tardy, that's not John Tardy, I'm just, you know, pointing. John Tardy was featured on this album, and he actually, which track was it? I forget which track. You know, he kind of just fits really well, to be honest with you. I want to say it's on side B. Now I look like a poser. Great. Anyways, sorry. You know, I've listened to this album so many times, it's just kind of like washed into my mind. He's in there, but I forget where. Anyways, Yeah, they really pushed into the American death metal scene by incorporating the sounds that Florida bands like Obituary and Deicide had going on, and drifting a little bit away from the grind roots that they had established very well for themselves. But they weren't done with it. They were not done with grindcore whatsoever, because with Utopia Banished, they went 50-50. And I don't have a record, but I do have an original cassette, which is cool. 1992. Got the old stupid Eric label. Oh, Eric, how the mighty have fallen. They've become such a just a shit in the water. I mean, they're awful now. But I swear, back in the 90s, man, having all the great bands, Bolt Thrower, Napalm Death, Anal Cunt, they had so many great bands on their roster. It's kind of hard to imagine what happened. Like what changed so drastically to where albums like this were not the face of Earache anymore. It totally went off the hill. So, yeah, I don't really give numbers around here cuz I mean, music is subjective enough anyways. If I'm sitting here giving you a 7.5 out of 10, just throw that shit out the window. Let's face it. If you're going to listen to it and you make it into the fourth track and you've been digging it all the way through, if the truth be known, you really should just jam the whole album before you make your conclusion anyways. Even myself, sometimes I can't make it into that second half of the album. And by then I'm kind of like, all right, disqualified for the time being. I'll return in a year and then I'll be like, what the fuck was I thinking? Honestly, that's how I got into Suffocation. I did not like it on my first listen. And for some people with Napalm Death, the vocals from Barney can be, even Lee Dorian, the first singer. Well, first, that everyone knows, okay? They really, they have some different kind of shouty dog bark vocals, and it didn't work for me at first. It didn't work. But once I got it, I couldn't unget it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. So, yeah, in case you haven't really been down the Napalm Death rabbit hole, I highly suggest Harmony Corruption. Scum is where everyone starts because it's the debut record, but it wasn't what they do now. It wasn't anything like later Napalm Death. When they play those songs live, they play Scum, Unchallenged Hate, You Suffer, But Why? And maybe The Kill. Not a whole lot else. But this album, they'll still play tracks from this one in 2025. Very awesome. So, yeah, Harmony Corruption. Jam it, get into it, watch whatever this shitty ad is behind me, and rock on. Stay metal.